Hello everyone, welcome back to the Restricted View podcast. I am Chris.
And I am Deborah.
And it is that time of the week. Well, yes, once again, usually on a Thursday, but often not.
Because we're bad at it.
When we talk about a show, usually a show that you can see right now. But this week, something a little bit different. Technically not a retro review, which we haven't done for God knows how long anyway, because as we keep mentioning, shows won't stop coming out, and we have no time to do lists.
We have no time.
Or anything other than reviews.
This is sad.
Anything other than live reviews. But this is for a show that is unfortunately closed now and not available to see currently.
But we're all holding out to hope they will get a transfer to the West End. We all are.
Why would you be hoping that, Deborah, unless you liked it? You keep spoiling your opinion.
Oh, spoiler alert. And today we're going to be reviewing Operation Mincemeat, the musical, not the film.
And not the musical film.
Is there a musical film?
Nope, just wanted to say that.
Oh, right, okay.
So, Operation Mincemeat, as I said, it was, we saw it in the Riverside Studios. In fact, that was actually already its second iteration. Yeah. Do you know where it was previously on before?
I don't know where it was on. Do you?
No.
Oh, okay. No, I don't.
Deborah will try and find that out now.
Hang on, yeah, they have a timeline on the website.
Okay, great.
This is going to be a long silence.
Well, when you said that, I assumed it meant you had it.
No, I don't have it.
Well, anyway, okay.
They were the Southwark Playhouse. Southwark Playhouse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it was actually a second iteration we saw. It has now closed. However, they have been teasing big announcements coming. Mm-hmm. So Deborah and I have a sneaking suspicion it will be potentially coming to a West End venue. I mean, Southwark Playhouse is West End, or more or less West End, isn't it?
Yes, but I think to get a proper run out of it rather than just a couple of months, right?
Yeah, we suspect a bigger run is coming. I think it's definitely coming back in some way, shape. It's not the last opportunity there will be to see it.
I think so too, especially because it kind of gathered a good, nice amount of following.
Yeah.
But also, I think they're kind of also teasing the potential cast recording because people are asking for it, and I would very much like to have that because I'd love to listen to those songs again. But yeah, so let's review.
Operation
Mincemeat.
Yeah. Operation Mincemeat. So it's based on a World War II operation, which is odd for a musical.
Oh, theme. And like something that put me off seeing it for a while.
Yes, likewise. It's just the name. I don't know what it is about the name Mincemeat.
I don't mind the name because it can mean two things. Because it means mincemeat also.
You're thinking of Christmas. Mincemeat, but I'm thinking of the word to me makes me think of meat that's been run through a mincer, which is not in this context, which is not a pleasant visual to associate with a musical, and it isn't odd. So Operation Mincemeat was an operation I didn't know about, which is weird considering I do have some interest in World War II, and this it sounds like it was like absolutely fundamental to the Allies winning the war. We went with our friend Michael, our Restricted View honorary member, who it was his recommendation. Now Michael's, as he knows, has had some hits and some misses with his recommendations. This was definitely more closer to a hit.
Oh yeah.
We'll explain how close. Well, we'll come to learn how close during the course of the review. But so I think Michael has. I think he's quite interested in World War II. He knew about it. He informed me what Mincemeat was about. Essentially, the Allies needed needed to get into Sicily. Was it Sicily? Yeah, Sicily.
Sicily.
They needed to get into Sicily. I hope I don't mix up the two islands, but I think it was Sicily they needed to go to. But there were like 100,000 German troops there. Obviously, it would be far too many losses to invade it and fight them all and to get it that way. But they needed to go there. So what they did was Operation Mincemeat was a very elaborate plan to have a body supposedly of a pilot wash up in Spain with documents that would suggest that they were actually going to go to Sardinia,
and then meaning that the Nazis would deploy their troops elsewhere, so redeploy their troops,
and it worked. So 90,000 of the 100,000 moved to Sardinia, and it made Sicily very easy to take, which then meant that the invasion of Europe was able to be a success. But obviously, finding a cadaver to do this, and also and it was all very. It was a very elaborate plan, and lots of things kept going wrong. And several times I leaned over to Michael and was like, "Did that really happen?" He was like, "Yeah."
Some of the stuff that went wrong didn't feel like real life. Some of the stuff that went wrong, it's very
Yes.
much like fictional wrong type of things. You know, coincidences that you don't see in real life. Or I mean, I guess you do, right? But
It
you
happen,
think
yeah.
of them as being fictional rather than reality.
So a pilot, name a few of these problems. A pilot, American pilot, genuinely crash lands
On the same day.
on the same day in the same place, and he has the same name as the fake name. that
Like,
they had
come
made,
on.
for the actual guy, for the because obviously they had to when the Germans were going to like do a background. This guy had to have a life and a military background. All that it had to be completely believable. This guy was real, and these documents were real. But then the Spanish coroner realized that these documents were important and tried to get them back into Allied hands. So the Allies had to basically be, so the Allies wanted to make it look like they wanted to recover the documents, but not to recover the documents. The Allies had to basically be, oh, that's great that you found them. Yes, definitely don't let the Nazis have them. Thanks. And then not, and then,
Yeah, exactly. So a very unlikely situation that happened. You know?
So I can definitely see, 100% see why they wanted to make a movie out of this. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
But when musical,
yeah,
really?
And they did it. And the people responsible for it, and actually, in fact, responsible for the book, music, lyrics, and the original direction of the show are a theatre group called Spitlip. And they are the actors. A lot of them are actually also acting in the show. They started not that long ago. I think it's 2017. And this is their first main show, like their biggest production so far.
Yeah. Yes, ensemble cast. Everyone plays multiple roles. There's gender swapping and all sorts. They can't pick up any mind to who's playing what. No one. I would say in the cast now, nobody excels vocally, but everyone passes the exam.
Yeah, and they excel elsewhere, which kind of makes up for it as well. Yeah. I think.
Yeah, I'm just giving you a vocal.
The
opinion on the vocal.
But I almost feel like I agree with you, but at the same time, I almost feel like this is not what this show is about. If that makes sense, even though it's a musical.
No,
Does that make sense?
We have to review all of it.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
The directing, obviously, as you said, it's the same 5 people who all credited as directors. I'm not a fan of that system myself, but it did seem to work okay in this instance.
Yes.
Joe Bunker was the musical director. I would say it's quite simple stuff musically. I wouldn't say it's anything to, it's again an odd thing to say about musical, but the music is definitely nothing to write home about.
Maybe not the music, but the lyrics are great.
Only in some of it, right? A lot of it is like whatever.
Oh, I think the lyrics are great.
Yeah, some of them, yes, but not all. Not some of the songs are very forgettable. I mean, I'm sure you've forgotten all but 2 of them.
Yes, but I only listened to them once. It's hard.
True.
It's hard.
But I'm overall not a fan, as I said, of this. I do think it's something I would recommend. Spitlip, is what they're called.
Spitlip. Spitlip.
Spitlip is something I'd recommend they kind of look into in the future. Is to not be such a closed echo chamber of just these 5 people writing stuff, casting themselves, and directing themselves. It's not a good system in general. And just because this show worked well does not mean it is a good system. You can a broken clock is right twice a day and all that. It's just not something. I'm sure that they're aware of this. At least I hope they are. It's just like I said. Ultimately, it would be an echo chamber.
Well, this is for the direction, right? Because everyone else is not part of this. The main 5 guys who started.
But the writers, directors, and actors are 5 people, and it's the same 5 people, and all 5 of them are credited in all 5 things, and that's an echo
Actually,
chamber.
4. I just realized.
Was it 4?
Yeah, it's 4. David Cumming, Felix Hagen, Natasha Hodgson.
Oh, you're right.
Zoe
I'm
Roberts.
sorry. It's 4. Yeah, fine.
It's because there is a 5th person in the play. I believe.
Of course, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not something I'm a great fan of. I've seen it go wrong a lot, and I think it will inevitably go wrong if they don't kind of get outside perspective.
Yeah, sure. And hopefully they will. And I think as they grow, they probably will, right?
And I think for a transfer to a major West End venue, this would need some external eyes to kind of clean up some things.
Potentially.
Such as, for example, the set. What set?
Yes, there's very little to it.
Set by Helen Coyston.
But I don't know. I do think it works. I think I was quite like, let's just put the cart in front of the horses. I was quite enamored by it. I think the whole show. So I was struggling to criticize it very kind of coldly, as it probably
I really
should.
liked it too.
No, I know, but I do think I like the set. There isn't much to it, but I think it's very clever what they do with the bits that they use. But I agree there could have been more.
I'm pretty sure the set was a table, 2 chairs, and a door.
Yeah, there was only one door, maybe 2 doors.
One door, I think.
One door, like
Which
sometimes
was
switch
just
sides.
rolled about the place.
And the phones, I agree the telephones are a bit odd.
They're props, technically, not.
Yes. Oh,
Permanent. Yeah, I guess. But
Sure.
Sure.
I get it.
You could argue. With that. But yeah, basically, the what set, right? There really isn't much anything. The clever use of the few items they had,
Yes.
such as the door. But ultimately, I do think that if you were to put that into, I don't know, name a theatre.
Vaudeville.
If you were to put that in the vaudeville, I don't think that set would fly, particularly because the audience are going to be looking up at you from the stalls
rather than down. Yeah.
Now it went on the Playhouse, which is a small, intimate venue, but it is still traditionally it's not a black box theatre, right? It's traditional theatre. So it obviously works there well enough for it to succeed. So
Well,
maybe
the Playhouse is similar. I think you look down at them, you go up, the seats go up.
Am I confusing? Is the Southwark Playhouse not the one near Embankment?
No, so the Playhouse is the one near Elephant and Castle. You're thinking of the Playhouse Theatre. Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
I see. Right.
very different ones.
Okay. No. So Southwark Playhouse is okay. Right.
This is where we saw
That's why
Aspects of Love.
Yeah. That's why I was saying. Oh, Southwark Playhouse is based kind of West End. Yeah. No. You're right. Okay. In that case, yes. So in that case, I revert to my previous statement. I don't think this set would translate into a more traditional West End.
Yeah, they probably
venue.
need. I agree. It probably needs some work, and it will need work overall to both make it to a bigger set. To kind of fill that set a bit more, and just overall to just kind of tweaks.
And this kind of brings me back to my concern about the echo chamber of just 4 people kind of having their ideas. I suspect if I was a consultant, I'm bringing this into let's say the vaudeville, and I would say this to them. I suspect they're going to be quite married to the idea of their set.
I don't know.
Because that's what inevitably happens when you've got an echo chamber of 4 creative people doing all the jobs. I've seen it happen. Now, again, maybe not. Maybe these are incredibly self-aware people, and they're going to be absolutely perfect at it. I'm purely speculating. It's just, as I said, it's just something. It is a concern of mine, and it is the reason I don't tend to like this style of production philosophy, or the production company practice. It's this type of practice.
I think for this particular venue, in where they were and everything, I think it does work. However,
it does, right. But my concern is that then it won't work in another venue.
Yeah.
But because they've only been discussing amongst themselves, they're not going to kind of have that have the ability to kind of see it from a distance.
Maybe not, but we'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, if they bring it on, I mean, for example, Mischief Theatre do not direct their own stuff. They write it and they're in it, but they get someone else to direct it.
Yeah.
And that shows a certain level of self-awareness. Now, Mischief Theatre obviously now are a lot bigger than they were, but they always had a director. Till It Goes Wrong, when it first opened, they didn't direct it. And I just think that they would that Spitlip would do well to get an external director. Maybe they will. Maybe for a true West End production of this, they will get in a director. I just think they should. That's what my point is.
It's just kind of the idea of throwing more thoughts at the wall and seeing what sticks to other people, on different walls.
It's also just that some stuff doesn't work, and they clearly can't see that because this is their second time round. But anyway, The Light is by Sherry Colan, and I would say, to a certain extent, again, what lighting, but I would say it's quite cabaret style, which does kind of work for what it is.
What do you mean by cabaret style?
I don't mean the musical. I
understand that.
I mean it looks like a cabaret.
Oh, because it's red.
It's all basic mute tones and single spotlights.
Sure.
I didn't know I had a definition for what I thought cabaret lighting was, but there you go. Apparently that's my definition. It just reminded me of going to a cabaret.
Okay.
And the really that kind of quite simplistic lighting. I don't think the lighting helps tell the story.
No, it probably does not do much. It is used. They do some clever things with it. The scene at sea, for example, when they have just a little torches.
Yeah, so it's good. That's good practical lighting. But
yeah.
Again, that's not Sherry. That's not the lighting design.
That's true. But yeah, so there's some clever things I think, but not necessarily the overall thing. I agree is a bit just generic.
Sounds by Mike Walker. I mean, it needs a louder the orchestra needs to be louder. It was a recording. I take it either that, or it was like two musicians off stage playing a keyboard.
But I thought the microphones were not loud enough. I couldn't hear them that well.
Yeah, well, exactly. But the orchestra needs to be. They just need a lot more. There needs to be a lot more oomph.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in the front row as well. There needs to be a lot more oomph. The orchestra needs to be a heck of a lot louder.
Mm-hmm.
If this is going to and have more instruments. If this is going to go to this is going to, frankly, not just it's going to go to the West End. Just if it's going to come back. It just needs to be more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I said, with set lighting and costume, all three of them is kind of like, well, what set, what lighting, what costume? It's all very minimalistic. I don't mean minimalistic in the way you say, oh, it's a minimalistic set, but it's well thought out and deliberately minimalistic.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like they just didn't really have any ideas, almost.
Yeah, I kind of understand I
I
understand what you're saying. They just kind of put it out without thinking about these things too much, and then these things kind of came into it. They have some practical things, like they have the doors, they have the desks, they have a few things that work.
I would say the set, the sound, and the lighting reminded me of what we did at university.
Okay, but maybe that is the case. I know.
But they are all quite young and they're fairly fresh out of theatre school, I take it. But I don't know. I would expect more from them, from those aspects when it is actually a proper professional production.
And I do think that you can say something similar about the costumes. I think the costumes are quite simple and a bit like they could have been bought anywhere.
Do you want to know my one note for costumes is?
Yes.
It's by Helen Coyston. I have literally nothing to say.
Sure, I think. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't know how much time or even budget they had to get proper kind of vintage things or to actually create from scratch proper vintage things, and they potentially had to buy things that just looked like it.
Which again is what you do in university.
Yeah, exactly. No, and that's fine. I think that's fine for small production, but I do think, again, as Chris said, if they're going bigger, these things probably need to be tweaked and just kind of made better. I think
that's why I think they need maybe like a really professional director to come on board, because everything does come across like a student's production, and then it's just like, but the writing is bizarrely significantly better than you'd expect from the student production. From it's like they wrote something really good, but then they're just not experienced enough, I guess, to put. They're still in this student mindset.
And maybe didn't have the budget when this first came out.
Yeah, sure.
Because I think that might be really the case. But yeah, so what do we think about the show itself?
Yes, so I really enjoyed it. I was very surprised. I thought it was very funny. It was very interesting, as nothing a word as that is, but it was interesting. It's an interesting event that happened. I knew the framework of it, but I learned more watching it, and I found that interesting. But as I said, very funny at times. I found it very moving at some times. Some of the moments, some of the pieces were actually surprisingly moving. Mm-hmm. And therefore, overall, it was a good theatrical experience. Aristotle would be proud. Again, we said this last week in Beauty and the Beast, greater than the sum of its parts. Almost more so than Beauty and the Beast, insofar as I surprise myself when we talk about it how critical I actually am of almost every aspect of this. And yet it kind of comes together to be something quite special.
Yeah, I loved it. I really, really liked it. I was moved. I cried like a baby, but I also laughed out loud. I think it's something quite unique. They have a gem there, and I do think that it can still be improved. It can still be made into something even like brighter and that sparkles even more.
Polishing.
Yeah, but I think it's really really good. I did not expect to enjoy it so much. I usually steer away from Second World War stories in general. They don't interest me very much. I usually find there's not much for me in them. But I think they were very clever with the way they told the story, with the point of view of obviously the people in MI5. I think kind of trying to come up with this plan. I also really like, I didn't fully understand at first, but then you very quickly realize that you have all these 5 actors, and they'll play whoever they'll play, regardless of gender. And I think that worked. I think that worked really well. It kind of it reminded me of Come From Away from that perspective, that you have people playing different characters, but obviously in this situation they're not playing either like men or women, regardless of who they are, and I think that really, I don't know, it kind of just made it very intimate and made you be able to relate to characters that you might not be able to relate to due to gender sometimes. I kind of just brought some things. I don't know. It kind of mixed these things in a good way.
I think that's a fair point. I think that's a valid reason in and of itself to have done it, because there's no perceivable reason why they've decided to do that. Insofar as they could easily have, they could easily have cast it with everyone playing genders they identify with throughout. But I think the fact they didn't, as you said, I think it does do something quite clever with your ability to identify with characters. I think it does assist that.
Yeah, and also kind of
And
it
also
takes
reframes
the
right?
sting off certain behaviors as well, in a weird way, because like you're telling a Second World War story. Almost evoke most of the characters in this scenario, like in MI5. Obviously, we know women were nurses and like fighting as well, but like in MI5, you'll have mostly men. So you would kind of inevitably have to have mostly men on stage, and being quite nasty at times. And I guess there's a woman pretending to be a man being nasty is not so bad when you like it makes it a little bit it brings out the ridiculousn's of it.
Yeah,
behavior.
And if you don't want to, if your piece isn't about addressing the nastiness of those behaviors, then but you need to represent them, but you don't want to get hung up on them. So it kind of indirectly calls it out by, as you say, highlighting the ridiculousness of it rather than focusing on the harshness of it.
Yeah,
because it's still critical. It's depicting what needs to be depicted. It's not dancing, being about the bush, but it's being critical in a humorous way about it.
Yes.
But then not dwelling on it and not saying, oh, the whole point.
The piece is about this.
Not making. Yeah, like sometimes you gotta just depict it and move on, right? But I think that it ultimately worked, right? It was a clever. It kind of covered a lot of bases at the same time. It achieved a lot of things at the same time. Whilst even if it wasn't actually, so I think even though it wasn't strictly speaking necessary, I understand why they did it. I think it was a good idea.
Yeah, I like that. I think it was great. And different. I also think despite the fact that we have all these 4 people directing and acting, I think the direction was overall very good, in my opinion. But I agree that maybe like calling someone in to kind of help them and bring out new ideas and to flesh it out more. I think that is also like a valid point. That Chris made.
I mean, I don't think because there's nothing. Yeah, it definitely could be something greater. I think they have something great here, but that needs to be that needs to be polished up. To use your gem metaphor.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really hope that they come back with this show. I would like to see it again, because there was a lot of lyrics that it's hard to like to take them all in. So I'd like to experience that again. I thought that they do deserve to be out more. I think it's just such a clever way to tell this story that I would never expect, like a musical about the Second World War. Are you talking about? This is not done really. So I really do hope that they come back.
Yeah, me too. I think, as I say, it's not musically massively strong. There are some. I think it is the lyrics and the sentiment of some of the pieces that actually work. But it's mostly one though, isn't it? Really.
Sorry.
It's mostly one number really that sticks with you, isn't it? Sticks with one.
Yes, I think there's a particularly touching moment when one of the characters is reciting a letter to be written, and it becomes very clear very quickly that character has written letters like that in the past.
Yeah.
And that is very emotional. I mean, there were 2 guys next to me. They were probably in their 70s or 60s, I don't know, and they were crying more than me. And that's an achievement.
It takes you on a journey, that letter, of the psychology of someone who's left behind, during a war, and the kind of the insecurities and the secret resentment and the bitterness that you hide, and the stiff upper lip kind of cracking. It's just good. It could be any musical about the World War. It's nothing to do specifically with this, and the plot would work without that song. You could remove that song, and the plot would all be the same. But this is where it exists. This is where it was created, and it's a really wonderful moment in the show. And I think it would be great even out of the show, but I think obviously you do need the context of the war, of a story about the war. I think if you just listen to this song on a CD, it wouldn't hit home in quite the same way.
No, and I think they managed to, you know how like we were talking about these characters playing, you know, like women playing men and stuff like that. And like I think also kind of this also helps. It also brings the role of women in the war as well, like which were much more like less talked about, but also present. And they talk about it without they don't make that much, like it's not that big a deal, but it's there, it's constantly present. And this character singing this song that we were talking about is like a woman, and she is remembering how quiet she is and how people kind of look at her and think she's just a grumpy old lady, but she's actually holding on to all this sadness, right, from having lived through, like from living through her second war.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just very interesting how they managed to put that underlayer of feeling under this kind of lighthearted at times. Like most of the time, it is lighthearted and funny.
I think the reason that moment works is just because it is ultimately just very, you know, it's what we go to the theatre for. It's very human. It's very, you know, it's, as Tommy Wiseau would say, it's real human emotion. You know, as
real drama,
real acting. Tennessee Williams, as he would say. No, but it's serious. But you know, he wasn't wrong. No. He wasn't wrong. That's what you want.
Nobody said he was wrong.
You want real human emotion.
You do.
You want to see these moments represented because it's difficult to comprehend or to experience or to perceive, and confusing to perceive them.
Mm-hmm.
So you want them explained to you.
Yeah.
That's what theatre's about, really. As you know, Aristotle wasn't wrong either.
Mm-hmm. And I think this elevates this show quite a lot. I think that's what the fact that the human character, the human quality that this show has, really, to me, elevates the way it stands in the way I perceive this show.
Yeah, because they have a whole subplot as well about, which doesn't land as well for me, but I can certainly see it landing for other people, about the nature of the anonymity of this person who's obviously they have to source a cadaver, and they source it from, I think he was, you know, who is he? Oh, he's a nobody. No one will miss him. He was a vagrant, basically. And I believe it is only in very recent times that we know the name of the person who.
Yes. There's a memorial to him, I think, in Sardinia.
In Sardinia? Oh, that would make sense.
Isn't it?
There was definitely a memorial to him. Someone said, I think Michael said there was.
I think they talk about it. They talk about it in the show. They put his hat down.
Oh yes, yes. That's what I'm saying. Yes, so the whole thing ended with the whole thing the whole thing had a whole theme of, you know, his anonymity and who was he and you know how disrespectful it was to forget who he was, and they kind of ended with, as you say, this representation of him almost like the unnamed soldier. It kind of reminds me of the tomb of the unnamed soldier.
I think that was very similar to that, and also kind of like paying homage to someone who did something that was actually, but they did unwillingly, but also did something that really changed the course of the war.
Yeah, actually, I just looked up. It was 1998 actually that his name was released. His name was Glyndwr Michael.
Yes, he was Welsh, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, he'd have to be with a name like that. But yeah, so that didn't hit home for me as well. I think it did more so for you.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, definitely.
And I understood what they were going for, but there's various reasons why that didn't hit home as well for me. But which we don't need to go into.
No, but I think it was well done, regardless of it. Not like regardless of how you felt about it. I think it was well done.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was well done. And again, it's just another example of real human emotion as time goes on. Just another good example of the kind of depiction that, you know, portrayal that you want to see in a theatre setting, and that can be very moving, and it's why this piece works.
I think it felt very much like a British comedy, and if you know what I mean about this, it's just like you have all this funny line after funny line, and then suddenly you're crying.
Yeah,
and that's you know,
it's very One Foot in the Grave or Blackadder. They all do the same. You know, they all all these comedies end in tragedy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we don't do star ratings here on the Restriction View podcast, so that's it from us. Good night. But if we did do star ratings, then I think I'd probably give this, for now, a 4.
It's a 5 from me.
5 or a 5 standing ovation?
No, it's a 5 from me.
Ooh.
I think you convinced me that there's a lot of room for improvement.
I think that's it, right? It is good, but there is a lot of room for improvement. And it's not just a kind of a wishy-washy, there's room for improvement. No, I can identify stuff in every section that could and should be improved.
Sure. No, I'm more forgiving, as you listeners will know, when I usually just kind of go with my emotions. And I was very, very touched, and I was also very impressed. So it is a 5 from me. I am very much hoping they come back with it, because I would love to go see it again and see some of you guys there, because I'm sure everyone will go see it after this review.
Yeah, you definitely should. And yeah, there you go. If you improve it a little bit, Spit Lip, Deborah will give you a standing ovation.
Oh yeah, I did at the theatre. You know, don't tell
Did
them.
I?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
But like just
Did
being
I? Do you remember if I did?
You did, I think. Yeah.
Did I?
Yeah. Being
Was
objective.
that pressure though?
I don't know if it was probably front row, you know. It's hard.
Yeah, in a very intimate venue. I didn't give Amy Adams a standing ovation at
Amy Adams, no, you did not.
She looked right at me. I think I was the only person sitting down. But
I didn't give it a
but,
standing ovation.
Did you not?
No.
I just assume you will at Tennessee Williams, I guess.
Oh.
But she looked right at me, and I wasn't standing up, and I was like, it reminds me of the time that Johnny Flynn looked right at me when I had a look of utter horror on my face at the end of True West. And I still feel a little bit guilty about that to this day.
He did Emma, he's fine.
Because he looked confused.
It was a very good show apart from the ending.
It was
this
a tremendously good show.
This
and
is
Kit
a
Harington
story.
was great in it, and Johnny Flynn was great in it.
Yeah, this is a story for another time.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it was a great show, but the ending wasn't.
The ending was so... anyway, right. Anyway.
Yes, 5 stars from me, but no star reviews, so very
4
good. Go see
stars
it.
from me, average of
When it's on.
4.5, restricted review recommends.
Yeah, we do recommend. Go see
Yeah, no,
it
we
if
really
it comes
do.
back.
We really strongly recommend it. We will post if it comes back.
And we'll post about the soundtrack if they finally release it, because
Yes.
there is talks. So
Indeed. And in the meantime, speaking of posting, I actually I forgot to say this last week. It was pointed out to me, but make sure if you're one person listening on YouTube, make sure to like that smash button and smash that like button.
yeah, not confusing at all.
It's become my thing. There's lots of people. There's lots of things people say.
Yeah.
Comment below. Let me know that rhyme is. I've heard lots of people use that. As far as I know, I've invented like that smash button.
But you know you probably haven't, right?
I probably wasn't the first to do it, but I did invent it independently.
Okay.
Whereas all the other things I've stolen. So that this one's mine. So
We'll
I'm
let
sticking
him have
with
it.
So I'm
Yeah.
sticking with it. So make sure you to like that smash button, smash that like button, and do comment below and say, "Hey, I'm the one person using YouTube."
Yeah, let us
and
know.
tell us why it is you use YouTube. But don't worry, we'll keep putting it up for you. But if you're listening on, like most people, on a podcast platform such as Spotify or Google Podcasts, etc., then please do follow the link over to Instagram and give us a comment there on the Operation Mincemeat photo and let us know what you thought of it. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree? Do you want to go see it? Have you seen it? Are you going to go back and see it again? Do you think it's a really weird premise for a musical? So is Hamilton, I guess. But make sure you do follow us on Instagram, give us a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, even if you're not listening there, because it helps us out.
Yes, please do. And we will talk to you next week. And in the meantime, see more shows.
In the meantime, see more shows.
In the meantime.
Bye.